I call him George. That's not his name, but he doesn't seem to mind. So, but it's so funny because your entities have all these great names like Aurora, the Ancients, and mine's Dee and George.
It's my narcissistic tendency. I couldn't possibly cope with the George, darling.
I do have the High Council. The High Council. Okay, so on today's show, I am delighted to have a very dear friend of mine. It's someone that she's my go-to person if I want to either unpick something that I'm stuck with, or if I've made some breakthrough, I want to share it with someone. She's the first person I go to. So I wanted to introduce Cara Wilde.
Hi, Cara. Hello. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks very much for being on the show. Would you like to just give an intro to start with? Just tell everyone a bit about yourself, what you'd like to say.
Well, I suppose wasn't expecting this. I should have been, really, but I think I'll just fly with it.
Oh yeah.
So I guess from a business point of view, from a work point of view, I am predominantly a channel. So I kind of see my role in life to be in that in-between space between the physical and the non-physical, and I kind of act as a bridge. That seems to like sum up everything, who I am and what I do. So from a more practical point of view, that means that I am trained as an energy therapist. Energy seems to be my first language, and as soon as I got my head around that, everything else made sense as to why everything else came afterwards. But energy is my first language. So I've trained in energy therapy, but predominantly I'm a channel. So I think that's where I'd start.
Okay. And you channel the Ancients at the moment?
Yes, I do. Yes, thanks for that. So, well, the Ancients are the second collective that I have channeled. So I started channeling after I cast a circle of light in my garden when I was living near the moors on Bodmin.
As you do.
It sounds so much more glamorous than it was, but it was good. So I just recently been involved in kind of pagan group and learnt about working with the land and the energies of the land, which was very new to me back then. So, but what I saw was when I connected with the angelic realm, which is where I hung out because it's safer than these people and all these kind of things. So I spent a lot of time in the angelic realms and working with Reiki, and I could achieve very high states and help people go really high. But then the land had a different kind of quality to it. And I noticed that people that were really dear to me and knew all this wonderful stuff around magic and paganism and sea witching magic and everything, their personal lives were a bit rubbish. They were a struggle, hardship. And I wanted to know how to bring that state of kind of heaven down here. This is a long-winded way of answering your question. But so I decided to cast a circle and ask, how do we bring that state into Earth? Like, stop messing around. Give me a postcard. Let me know how to do this. So then I had some really intense experiences, moved to a different part of the country, and then spontaneously started to channel one night. So I channeled then a collective called Aurora for a few years that I can now see paved the way for a collective that they present as, and I call the Ancients. That's kind of the name that they go by. And I'm always constantly learning about who the Ancients are and what they're here to help with. But they have always said to me that they're here to help restore the original blueprint for us and the earth, and part of our evolution into the next stage. But it's also a case of remembering who we really are at the same time. So they're very much a starseed and earth energy collective and I haven't got the language really to explain who they are. But they're here to help people who want to really make a difference in the world, want to be a presence of love, but there's a lot of stuff that's getting in the way of them feeling comfortable about offering their work, and just being their authentic selves in the world. So that's my long-winded answer.
Thank you for that. Yeah, it's very interesting when you talk about connecting heaven and earth, because as you know, I do light language, and one of the things someone told me was that what I needed to do when I did it was not just channel light language, but also connect to the earth energy at the same time. So what I now call earth and sky light language. And there does seem to be a message there. There's something. It's more than just all being airy fairy and up in the heavens, isn't it? It's well, being grounded as well.
Absolutely. So my current interpretation of all of this is, well, back then, so when I first started channeling, that was about 12 years ago. But before that, I think I very clearly had this distinction that heaven was up there and we were down here. And so it's not, it's here. We're just, we're just not seeing it right now. We're not tuned into the qualities, the way of being, the way of living in life that would allow that state to become more visible here. So if you think in terms of like parallel realities, or what it is that we're tuned into in any current minute collectively, and consensus reality is really connected into the idea that that life is a struggle. There's something inherently wrong with us. We've got to make up for it. We've got to produce. We've got to earn our worth. All of these fundamental core beliefs that are incorrect and started a long time ago kind of put us in one direction and one reality. And what I'm learning is that we need to do a collective shift to another set of core beliefs and ideas about living in the world that would then allow that heaven to be revealed. Does that make sense? So more beliefs like we're a blessing in the world, it's safe to be in the world, all of those kind of things that I know you and I have spoken about before.
Now, it's weird because just this morning in the shower, I was just thinking about this interview, and then my mind wandered to my work and, very 3D problems and things. And then I was reminded of a quote that I came across this week, which I can't remember the exact wording of, but it's along the lines of, it's what you do doesn't matter. At the end of your life, your soul will not care what you did. It will care about how what state of being you were while you were doing that. And I really, as you know, from all our chats together, when I feel a spiritual truth, I really get sort of choked up in my chest and I was getting that. I thought, yeah, I know this intellectually, but I could actually feel it then. But you're right. It's just, and there's also the what's her name, Abraham Hicks. I came across something on Instagram about her saying, people questioning what she was doing. So it's all about being joyful, the state of being, and they'll say, but what will you have achieved? I would have been joyful. And it's just such a paradigm shift from how society is set up at the moment. It's all about, even economically, it's all about constant. We have to grow constantly. We have to be producing more. It's all just all about. It's very harsh. It's very harsh,
yes.
And unforgiving.
Yeah, and one of the things that I heard once, which was really useful, because there's something that if we don't pay attention to our soul's impulses, or soul, true self, soul, heart, however you want to describe it, but if we don't do that and we don't listen to the whispers, then our souls start to shout, and we have what I call a soul intervention. And it's just like, I think a lot of us that have been on this path have had a soul intervention where it's just like, I aren't messing around now. Like, come on, your life's worth more than this. Because the soul doesn't care about pensions. Like, if you think about that, your soul doesn't care about pensions, retirement investments, whether you own a house or rent a house. And it's just like, no, that really just, of course it wouldn't. But it's still up to, we can still choose those things if we want. But it's like you said, it's about whether it's a heartfelt choice that will then automatically bring us more joy, or whether it's a choice that's built on conditioning around earning your worth. That's
So I know for me, for so much of my life, my primary focus was earning money. That was, you know, it was always, when I get the earning money sorted out, then I'll be able to live my life, sort of thing. And then when I finally woke up to that, I thought, bloody hell, what have I been doing all this time? You know, and it's, God, it was such a relief to just to you know, just to say, oh, my best is good enough. You know, I don't have to do all those things. You know, I don't. You know,
it's not the destination, it's the journey that matters. I mean, that's really cliched for a reason, you know.
Yeah,
it's true.
Yeah, I mean, I love the idea about soul intervention. It's because it seems that sort of, you know, one's midlife crisis is probably a classic time when your soul says, right, you've had half your life. You've done all that you're supposed to do here. You came here for a reason, and you know, you completely ignored it. So, you know, and you see some people, it's just they just almost opt out. They think, okay, I'm giving up here, and they just, you know, start spiraling. And the other people, it's their chance. Like for me, I've just been realizing what I was really here for, which completely, I worked in IT and finance, right? But I'm a healer. It's to, you know, and I've spent most of my life not being a healer, and, you know, finally to wake up to that, it's been, my soul sings. It's always my touchstone. Does your soul sing when you do this? And if so, then you're on the right path.
And I think it's useful to say as well for people, like if people do decide to opt out and just keep going on a more like mundane path, then that's okay. That's that's their choice. That's okay. There's always next lifetime. There's always next lifetime, next lifetime. But there's also this lifetime, you know. So if you do decide to do what makes your soul sing, I really like that phrase, then I think it's really important to not get tripped up on regret, because I think the negative ego can come in and just like, oh yeah, you think you're so special. Well, if you were special, you would have done this by now, you know. And regret is a really tough state to navigate. So just in case there's anybody listening to that, I don't think listening to this around and thinking that about regret, I don't think there's any human being alive that doesn't have regret. That's like a you know, a collective human experience, and nothing's ever wasted. So in terms of, you know, your journey, I don't want to speak for you, but I imagine that lots of things that you're looking back on now can just be really useful information to put towards your healing, and to be even more clear when you're working with clients that if they want to make changes, that's the right thing to do. You know, like none of that where we think we're off track is ever wasted. In fact, it might mean that you're a better healer because of it. I know you're not saying that you regret it or anything, but
no, I'm just thinking about it, as you said, how much I don't have great many regrets about it. You know, when I think about, you know, I was supposed to be doing this all this time, but it's part of it is the journey. I mean, if you just won't, you know, you're born and you instantly know what you're supposed to be doing, you spend your whole life doing it, you know, there's none of the sense of unfolding and discovery and working through it, because the way the game is set up, which is so weird, but you choose beforehand why you're coming here, and then you're made to forget, and you have to rediscover that. And that's a really interesting twist on life, in that, because you can spend your whole life not rediscovering that, and you know, at the end you think, God, I missed that completely. You know, it's the, oh dear, oh, why didn't I see that, sort of thing, you know. All those signs. But it is that unfolding that is part of the joy of life, really, is, you know, I just love the daily spiritual discovery and think, oh God, I can do this now. Oh God, I see how to, just that
Right.
different way of looking at life. And if you didn't have that, that would take out so much of it's the remembering, as to use Conversations with God term. It's remembering who you are. And it's better to do that bit by bit, I think. And maybe I'm wrong, but
no. Well, I think what's useful is there's no wrong way, and that's so hard for us to get our heads around. I think because it goes. Well, my school experience certainly didn't tell me there was no wrong way, But I was listening to a healer the other day who she developed cancer and decided to treat it with energy psychology and use it as a message of awakening and all that kind of thing, a further awakening. She'd been on a spiritual path for a long time, and it was interesting because she said it took me 2 whole years to heal my cancer, and she said the pressure was on, because she said she was listening to all these people that had been able to heal tumors overnight and all that kind of thing. And so she was feeling like a failure for it taking 2 years. And I'm just like, you healed your cancer. And she said it was just ridiculous, ridiculous what was going through her head. But what she realized is, yes, those people that had those amazing experiences, and I mean, Dying to Be Me is a huge example. They come back with a certain message. They have a certain message, but those people that either are still on a healing journey, and we call it kind of living with cancer, but still on a healing journey, or people like her that were in the journey for 2 years, there's a richness in that as well. So there's no better than journey, and the ego really wants us to be better than or less than, mine does constantly. So I think there is richness in whatever path you choose, and it just comes down to, like you say, what makes your heart sing.
Yeah. So I had something I wanted to say then, but never mind. Do you want to talk? One of the things I'm very interested in these interviews is, what were the defining spiritual moments that helped you on your awakening process? What were the special moments that made you think, God, yes, there is another whole dimension to all this?
Yeah. I guess because I have to cast my mind back to a time when I didn't think there was, but
You've been on the path a long time, so
I should be better by now.
Whereas for me, I'm a comparative newcomer, so I'm all
okay.
I can remember every detail, but it's probably
So I think where spirit was just like, oh my God, she needs a rescue, let's sort this out, was when I was 17. So I was doing my A-levels sporadically, sometimes turning up for lessons. So, one of those people that would just do really well if she'd just apply herself. So I'd managed to scrape through education by the skin of my teeth, forgetting that I needed to revise, completely forgetting that I needed to revise for exams. Like, oh shit, you're supposed to do that. So by the time I got to A-levels, I was just like, ugh. So a friend recommended this woman who did tarot readings. And I still remember Mrs. Kitchen. She lived in an old northern mining village, and she just did them literally out of her kitchen. And once she realized that I was an A-level student, she wouldn't even charge me. So I went to her, and I'd lost my granddad about a year before, I think. And I can see now, I knew that my granddad had died because I heard a certain song and I just knew it. So I could, looking back now, I can see where my intuition was already, letting me know things, but I didn't understand that at the time. Anyway, so I had this tarot reading, and this woman, she knew my granddad's nickname, not just his name, his nickname. And she came through with all sorts of information for me. And she just said, your journey is going to be filled with spirit, like that is going to be your life's journey. And I was thinking, well, spirit of alcohol was quite my friend back then. I'm not so sure about this other kind of spirit. But she said it's a spiritual path is going to be really important to you. So the fact that she knew so much made me think that there was something going on. And me being me, that was it. I found a spiritual development church. I started to get, and everything just kind of opened up for me from there. So that was my first, it wasn't a moment. That was my first, there's more to life than this. But looking back, I used to get lost in the Bible, of all things. I was not raised like that at all, but somehow I'd come across that. I was fascinated by stories about Mother Teresa, Joan of Arc, Martin Luther, all the religious things. It's like it was trying to find me for a long time. My interests were taking me in the right direction. It just didn't make any sense to me. But the tarot reading was the first indication.
So that told you that there was a more to this than it wasn't all woo to use the name of your podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, like I say, that started the journey into, okay, so I want to learn more about this. I started doing mediumship development, learned it was a skill that I could build and I could develop. It started making sense of why when I came into a room, I could feel physical pain that other people were feeling. And then things like that started to happen was my adoptive dad is a musician and collects keyboards and that kind of thing. And he inherited, one of those old-fashioned massive organs with the wind pedals and stuff. So he inherited that, and I remember it clearly. He was bringing it into the house. I'd already been on a spiritual path for a while then, but as soon as it went past me, I just felt exactly how the owner had died, whether the owner was male or female, what their personality was like, just got this hit as soon as that piece of furniture came past. So he rang his mum and she confirmed that was right. And so it just kind of made sense of why all those kind of things were happening to me. But also I trained to develop the skills at the same time.
But am I right that you, remembering from your podcast, you were having spiritual experiences of some kind? You were seeing things from a really early age.
Yeah, yes. So I was, but I forgot. So I disassociated a lot from my childhood, like a lot of us were on this path did. But I remember seeing, I used to call them my bubble full of friends. So I remember the cot. It's a disassociated memory, so I am looking down on it. But when I first started to remember, I did check with my mum about where the cot was in the room, what colour it was and everything, and she confirmed it. So that was quite validating. But I remember, and I can feel it now. I can remember just this bubble of light and filled with what I used to think of as my friends that I could talk to. And it was guides, it was soul family, it was all of that. Yeah, I never really landed in physical reality. It took me a long time to land in physical reality. But one of the benefits of staying that disconnect is I stayed more in touch with the truth of who I am, I think. So I don't know if I'll explain this very well, but I think the fact that I stayed so disassociated helped me stay connected to spirituality and the spirit and the non-physical, because it's that in-between state where everything hangs out.
Yes, it's interesting because I, as you know, I, at a very early age, was having various clairvoyant experiences, mostly in my dreams, but they terrified me so much I just shut them down completely and then spent most of my life in blissful ignorance of it, whereas you've managed to keep hold of it, which is great, and it's obviously stood you in good stead.
Yeah, and I think we're born like that, aren't we? I remember it's not sometimes I think in the spiritual field, it's like there's special people that are gifted. And I think there are those of us that have got like tendencies towards something. It was perhaps a soul intention. So I think I have a tendency towards channeling. I definitely know that I've had lots of lifetimes doing this, and I intended to do this in this one. But I think we're born clairvoyant, we're born with all our senses switched on, and then we get conditioned out of it. In the same way that we're all born athletic and then we get conditioned out of that. You know, we get conditioned out of our natural state, which is why our spirituality needs to be primal. We need to get back to that state.
Do you actually think that everyone has inherent spiritual abilities from the get-go?
Oh God, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I can certainly see there's a strong pressure in society to, you know, like for me, I'd go to my mother and say, oh, I've seen these crazy things from, you know, I didn't say other dimensions and stuff, but all sorts of freaky stuff. He said, oh, it's just bad dreams. And, you know, it's not real. It's not real.
No, I remember having with my kids would hear my thoughts, and I knew that they had, because they spoke a response and I'd never said it out loud. And telling me about past lives, and I never spoke to them about past lives. So I don't know. I mean, obviously, I'll know more when I go back to source and I'm not physical. Then I'll be like, oh, damn, that was it. But my best guess, I know, my best guess is I think some of us have a stronger predisposition to spiritual gifts, clairvoyance and everything. But I think to be human is to be spiritual too. So I don't think there are some that don't and some that do.
I think it's really easy to shut this stuff down. I mean, I've watched someone that inherently I've always thought of as more spiritual than me. But as I started to get into the stuff and talk about things more, their response was, this is all nonsense. And the result was that they said, this is all nonsense, all of it. And they shut the whole lot down, including everything that they believed. You know, it was very interesting to see how easy it is to do that if you're not careful, because this stuff is subtle. You know, this is all on the fringes of our senses, you know, in that to the extent that normally we don't, you know, society doesn't believe in this stuff because it's so subtle and, you know, it's so easy to explain away. But, you know, we're getting all this spiritual input all the time at a subtle level. And if you open to it and start listening to it, then it'll get more obvious. But it's so easy to say, no, that's just nonsense, and just push it away. And then it just, you know, you can spend a lifetime never heeding the whispers of the universe.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff.
So
one of the things I want to convey in this is about what I've just saying about this information is there to all of us all the time, but it's very easy to ignore it. But you get a lot of sensory input all the time. Like often we're talking, say, oh, I can see this being behind you doing such and such, or you're hearing stuff, and I mean, very intuitive. So what's it like living in a world like that?
Okay, magical, chaotic, and confusing. No, it is. I guess, like I said at the beginning, once I realized that energy was my first language, then everything else kind of just made sense. So I'm extremely sensory sensitive. So it's almost like I've got a thin skin between me and the world from a sensory point of view. And I think, like you said, this is subtle. But it doesn't feel that subtle to me. So I'm trying to think of asking what is it like? So I'm just going to tell some stories. So the one that's coming to mind is this is what it's like to be. This kind of sums it up. So I was in counselling. I was in my late teens, early 20s, I think, was my second round of counselling, because the first time they were all rubbish. And they were. And then, but the second time I just met this walking angel. So she was considered by the doctors way back then to just be like a bog standard mental health nurse. And I was having panic attacks, like daily panic attacks. And I think my soul was trying to get my attention, like, you are on the wrong path. So I was in counselling, and she would say, yeah, we just do visualization and things like that to the doctor. She closed the door and she's like, right, is this a past life? Is this your soul family trying to get through? And I'm just like, oh my God, who is this woman? So I would have spontaneous past life experiences. And she just held this really powerful state of blending the psychology with the spirituality. It was just perfect for me. So from that, I got interested in Reiki. She introduced me to Reiki. And I was just like, my partner in crime back then, Robert, we would just try all sorts spiritually. We'd just have a go, whatever, just have a go. So I'm like, there's this Reiki thing. Should we have a crack? Let's just have a go. So we signed up. And the night before, I had a dream that I got struck by purple lightning. And when I went the next day, I discovered that the Reiki I was getting attuned to then, a Sui, was known to be purple, a purple ray, it's called. And I just thought, that's interesting. And then that just all started flowing. And on the day of the training, me and my friend Robert went out on a smoke break, because I was still smoking back then. And I was in that really kind of attuned, really aware of the subtle energies. And I had I breathed in when I was breathing in on my cigarette smoke, and I was only smoking nicotine, nothing else. And just as I breathed in, the whole environment just breathed in. So I was inhaling the grass, the trees, like physical reality just went really pliable. And then I breathed it out. And I just remember thinking, what the fuck was that? And I went back to this counsellor, and she's just like, Cara, people spend years meditating to have that kind of experience, and it just happens to you. And I think that just sums it up. It just happens to me, and I don't ask for it. And sometimes I'm not grateful enough for it. I don't appreciate it enough. I take it a little bit for granted sometimes, but I also have this, oh, you're kidding me. It's like I have this belief system in spite of myself, but it's because of the direct experiences that I have. And I think that's what's really beautiful about what you're putting together here is we need to learn to trust our direct experiences more, because there's no manual for this. You're not going to get consensus reality saying, yeah, go on, you're onto something. You're not going to get our capitalist models going, yeah, there's a secret to the universe. You don't need to prove your worth, and you don't need to keep producing. Yeah, 9 o'clock news. Come on, create your own reality. It's just not going to happen. So we need to trust our direct experiences. And I think that's been my direct experiences sometimes feel so way out. It's like, can I trust these?
Do you want to share the one you've told me about, driving along and with the A's telling you about the fuel gauge?
Oh, yeah. No, it's fine. People, this is the one thing that I think I could do more of, and I don't know why I don't like it, and I resist it. But with the A's, and Aurora, they were saying, let's do some experiments and let's just show you what's possible. And so I was so brassic and skint at the time. So you know what it's like when you're filling up your car on like £10. Well, you can't do it on £10 now, but then £10 to just keep it going. You're richer than me. You probably don't have that experience at all. But you just like, how much can I get away with putting in to get me to where I want to be? So my needle was constantly hovering above the red. And they just said to me, I can't remember all the details of it, but they just said to me, just give it to us for a bit. Let's show you what's possible. And so I went driving. I didn't put any petrol in, and I got further than I should have done, and the needle moved. And they were saying this physical reality is not real. It's just not real. Is that the one that you mean?
Yeah, when you say moved, basically it moved up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
that's the key thing.
It did. It moved. And that's a bit that I was just like, it did top up my tank. So this is how we end the petrol crisis, is we learn how to create our own reality. But it freaked me out. And I think that's the other thing, like I'm like a lot of people really fascinated by the idea of instant manifestation. And what I mean by that is, you know, like all these masters that have gone before, I hate that term, but all these like people that have managed to stay aligned with who they are and source energy, and like Jesus, and I mean there's so many, but how true abundance is just having what you need when you need it at the time. So the stories about people that have just needed a certain amount of money to pay for food, and so then they've just manifested that amount in their hand. And so I'm really fascinated with that because of all the experiences that I've had. I kind of know that it's true and I know that it's real. But what I think is really interesting is that when I think about doing that, I fear losing my mind and losing a grip on reality. And then all the practical things come in. I remember saying to my friends, yeah, but if we did learn how to instantly manifest, say, money or something, well, what would you do with it? Where you couldn't put it in the bank. Once somebody say what's going on, all that stuff gets in my way. And they come back with, you just manifest jewels or something. But it's just the principles of being able to like just live a daily practice of knowing that we are not lack. So I think that is the biggest spiritual principle, is we're taught that we're lack constantly. We're not good enough. We need to earn our worth. We need to produce more. It's just like we are constantly living in lack. And I think the source knows that we are worthy, abundant. We are already everything that we need to be. And from that place, we could manifest just the next bit we need, the next bit we need, the next bit we need. Does that make sense how I'm describing
Absolutely.
it?
Yeah, no, I'm just getting a sense of this. You're right. Society tells us, you know, where you are at the moment is, as you say, it's lacking. It's not right. But the truth is, you're perfect. Everything is perfect right here, right now. There's nothing that you need to do.
It is what it is, and whatever it is all right.
You know, and I'm just getting a sense that as we talk about it, it is, I don't know how I can put this into words. I've lost it now. But yeah, it's interesting that we had a meeting yesterday or 2 days ago, and the phrase came up that it's amazing how not worrying about money tends to make money flow a lot easier. And it's just things like that. It's the thinking that you don't have something. It just, of course, pushes everything away. And this is why I have this slight objection to all this, my Instagram feed. If you're not careful, you go down these rabbit holes on Instagram, and it's all about manifesting. This is how you do this, that, and the other. And it's all about, you know, this is how you need to make all this money, then you'll be happy, sort of thing like that. And even though they say that the principle is knowing that you have it already, sort of thing like that, there's still the underlying belief behind it that somehow you need it, and you're not going to be whole without it.
And that's the key piece. Okay, so that's, I guess, all right. So this is the gift of channeling for me. I worked with guides for years on the mental realm. So I would do visualizations, I'd go and meet them, I'd have concrete experiences, I would get guidance. But then when I channeled, I allow, and how I teach or used to teach it is how I allow another being's energy into my energy being. So it's not a mental, it's an embodied process. And I think the journey that we are on, an embodiment journey spiritually. That's for me is the big difference, and the thing that we're missing. It's not an intellectual exercise, it's an embodiment exercise. So the thing that changed with me with channeling the most is I learned what a true relationship is like. So I often joke that Aurora was the one that healed my codependency the most. I would have tantrums. I would argue with what they were saying. I wouldn't like it. And they were immovable in the truth of who they were and what they believed in. So like for me, working with guides and working for channeling, channeling is just connecting to something that is more connected to source than I am. It's just got that wider perspective. So if I had my stuff sorted out, I'd just be able to connect to source. But so channeling showed me what right relationship was, which allowed me then to see where I was out of right relationship with myself and where the world is out of right relationship with source. So the core of everything starts with our own worthiness. So the A's call this our dignity. We need to reclaim our dignity, which is the way that we value ourselves, respect ourselves. But the biggest thing is our cosmology. That's the biggest thing that informs us, whether we believe that we've got an abandoning God, a judgmental God, or an unconditional loving God. So I've had enough direct experiences to know that there is no judgment at all from source energy. And the biggest thing for me was what happened with John of God in Brazil. So I don't know if people listening might not know who John of God is. It's a healing center in Brazil. Oprah Winfrey went there. They were pivotal in helping Wayne Dyer heal from his leukemia. And I went over there. A client paid for me to go over there, actually, it was a gift to help me with my channeling. So when I went over to Brazil, it's this whole retreat that's kind of just protected from the rest of the world. It's the most bizarre, beautiful and weird place all thrown into one. So I went over highly skeptical. So there is this guy who used to allow entities into his body and perform miracles, healing miracles. And so would put knives in people and there'd be no blood, that kind of thing. And so I went over there with my then partner, and these entities just work with and protect that whole environment. So let me just think about the main story from that place that would kind of illuminate this. So one of the things that you can do is you can ask to be a channel. You have to ask permission. So in this healing center, when John of God is doing or was doing his healings, there would be a crowd of people around meditating and helping to create what's called a flow. So you would tune into the energies, you help create a field which would allow then the healing to happen more easily. So when I first got there, I was told that I had to be in this mediumship place and I had to sit and meditate for 6 hours. And I'm just like, I am not. Nope. But I made an agreement with myself before I went, in for a penny, in for a pound. My nana always said, so if I'm going to do it, I'm just going to do it. So I thought, I'll do it. I didn't think for 1 minute I could sit there for like 3 hours, a break, and then 3 hours. And I did, and I loved it. So then you can ask for permission to be a channel. So you go closer to John of God, but you are more directly involved in creating a flow. So I'm like, want that. And I got permission to do that. And I flew out in the morning. It felt like I was just going to work on my best day. So I would sit there for 6 or 7 hours with just one break. And the energies that were there from spirit was just unbelievable. I've never felt anything like it. Everybody was just calling it down.
You know, I'm feeling this now a bit.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man. It
Oh,
was
okay.
incredible.
Mm.
I was, yeah, I've got lots of stories from that place. But the main thing is this beautiful golden white milky kind of energy with all these different beings in that were responding to 30 40 of us, 30 or 40 of us sat there asking for it to come through and create this field. And so there, so people experience miracles there. I had some crazy spiritual experiences there, beautiful. And then probably everybody will know this man who did all this healing is now in prison. So he was accused of numerous sexual abuses and numerous sexual offences, predominantly all towards women, I think, and he's now in prison. And I was furious with spirit. And I said to the A's, why did you let that happen? How did you let that happen? Why did you let that happen? And their honest answer came back, his source doesn't judge. It answers a call. What he did as a man was very different from what he did as an entity and what they did. And that I was just like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, that's not okay. But so my biggest takeaway from that and everything that I've seen and everything that's working is there is no judgment from source. Source is constantly saying yes to us. There's an inherent flow towards what Abraham would call well-being. That's the easiest to tap into. Yeah. And so the cosmology point that I'm trying to make is there is an unconditional source that loves us exactly where we are right now without needing to have changed anything that we've done in the past or about who we are now. I don't know if that's all making sense.
Yeah, no, I think it's quite hard for some people to grasp that. But I mean, that single statement, there's no judgment from source. That statement alone, if you fully grasp what that means, is just life-changing, because you know, just every judgment you might ever have made about yourself or other people, you know, you just don't need any of that. There's no judgment, you know. And it's all this idea about good and evil and things like that, you know, it's just being and isness.
Yeah
It's hard for people to grasp that.
So I know for me, like, you know, my personal history, but for the storybook, you know, the headliners, for people listening, is just there was a lot of abuse and violence, like quite extreme in my childhood. And so part of my journey around forgiveness has been really, really, really rich and interesting. And where I got to is that nobody ever does anything that they believe is wrong in that moment. They just don't. And I worked as an addictions counselor, and I've worked in domestic violence. I've worked in like challenging areas before I started doing my own practice. And I know nobody does anything that they think is wrong in the moment. Afterwards, they might reassess. Afterwards, they might not reassess. And they bloody should, you know, as far as I'm concerned. But nobody ever does anything they think is wrong in the moment. And that's why there can be no judgment.
Yeah. I always say, yeah, everyone's doing the best that they can at the time. It's the same way of saying what you know, but
yeah, I think for me, that never really worked for me, I guess. But that nobody is ever, it's the same thing. I think for me, that just knowing that everybody thinks that they're doing the right thing it's like there's always a positive intention to everything, even if it's just really horrible. And I feel like I can say that because that's been my journey, and that's how I feel about the so-called, you know, persecutors and abusers. I've had to repair the wounds that and heal the wounds. And why I might have chosen this is probably a topic for another conversation, but the fact that everybody is always doing something from a positive intention almost confirms that the whole flow of the universe is a positive intention.
Yeah, I think I need to meditate on that, but that sounds really profound.
Maybe it's not profound.
I'm sure it is.
But I think Source is always kind of saying you can do what you want, but there's here, like so Source, whatever you want to, however you want to define that, there is this flow of unconditional love that is, you can keep on doing what you're doing, but I'm staying over here. Like I was saying that the A's and Aurora are not immovable from their truth. It's like, you can come here whenever you want. There's that, which is the opposite of what I am. We're still within the field of who I am, and you can keep on doing it, and I'll always be here. I'll never abandon you, and I'll never judge you, but I'm always going to stay over here, and you're welcome to come whenever you want, and stop doing all that behavior that's so destructive to yourself and other people. Does that make sense?
Yeah, in that description in a way reminds me of conventional talking therapy. Part of that is it's about being the immovable point of reassurance and unconditional lack of judgment, love, and to teach people what a as you said, a non-codependent relationship is like. It's the same thing, but on a universal scale.
Yes. Yeah. Because talk therapy, well, not a lot of our psychology comes from it's not a spiritual place, is it? No. So it's still caught up in human-made belief systems, whereas this is beyond human-made belief systems. And I think that's a different kind of intervention. That's why miracles can happen at that place. Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to talk about your your space clearing and earthwork type stuff? It's a recent venture for you.
It is, yeah. So I've built up over the years of living very close to the wild moors of Cornwall and where I live, and working with stone circles, a strong connection with what earth energies, or and combined that with my ability to read energy. And what started to happen a few months ago, or even before that, but I've started practicing it more now, is working with a combination of earth energies, stone circles, power spots, and clearing pain bodies, entities, however you want to describe it, from the land and from people's bodies and predominantly people's homes. Help me out. What specifically?
Yeah, well, I can speak firsthand about this because you did some clearing for me. I had a house that I was struggling to sell, and it just, the spectacular ways in which the sales would fall through at the last minute each time was just, you thought there has to be something going on here because it's just so crazy, and you would never believe it. And so then I called you in, and because you said you were doing this stuff, and you realized that there were things to do with the house itself not wanting to let me go, and also the surrounding land was wounded, and it was all that kind of thing, and you healed that. I mean, this was all I'm been developing energy sensitivities for a few years now, but I'd never really picked up on land stuff at all until you came down to Oxford, and that we went to that church, and and I felt that energy, and since then I've been able to feel it. And
brilliant.
I've actually started to, in my own faltering way, to do some land clearing as myself as well. But you because you use stone circles energy to help.
So this is another example of why you need to trust your own direct experiences. So I was taught by pagans and how to cast circles. I did most of my research about how to cast a circle on Google. I did.
Yeah.
And so learned the language, but then trust my direct experiences. And I had a lot. And then one night here, this was a few years ago, I'd been working a little bit with the local stone circle. That's kind of like my bestie now. And I was going to bed and I heard the stone circle say to me, come and work with me. I want activating. I'm just like, no, no, I don't want this.
You're hearing stone circles talk to you.
I want to be normal. Please, no. But I knew, I just knew. So I was just like, stone circles don't need activating. What's that about? And then I started researching it and listening to other channels who say that, you know, I had my own experiences when I went to Avebury that surprised me. That's where I spontaneously started channeling light language. I didn't ask for that. I didn't want it either, but that spontaneously started to happen. So the power centers, I thought, well, they just do what they do, but actually they do need healing and clearing. Some not nice things have happened in them over the years. And also this particular stone circle said, I'm not just pretty. People just keep coming to look at me. I want working. Okay. So, and even now
validated as who it was.
No, it's been objectified. Yeah. So, so I just, well, you know, stuff happens. So I started working with it and just casting circles. And I had some beautiful and profound experiences. And if somebody's listening who knows a connection between the trauma that we carry in our energy bodies and the link between that and how that links with the trauma and the trauma in our energy bodies and how that affects the energy grid of the earth and how that might relate to the environmental stuff that's going on at the moment, let me know. CaraWilde.com, let me know, because that's what I'm really interested in at the minute. Because I had these experiences sat in the stone circle where the stone circle connected with me and then it connected me to the grid of the earth and it was just bliss. And I'm still trying to figure that out. I'll answer your question in a minute. I'm going all over the place. I can't even remember what the question was now. No, I do in a minute. And the other thing that I started using stone circles for, because I don't normally share a lot of these things outside of friendships because they sound a bit strange, but I run, and I used to run a lot more, and I'd run along the moors. And I noticed that if I went in, when I was getting tired on a long run, if I stopped off at a power station, at a stone circle, I could stand in the middle and it would power me up and I'd run for more. So I think they're really untapped. So to get back to your thing about the land, this started even more when a mutual friend of ours was needing an entity clearing in their client's house. And I remember when we were talking about it, just feeling this energy, dark and black, and I could really feel it. And so I'm like, I think I want to have a crack at this. And I asked the A's, and that's the first time they said, use the stone circle to do this clearing. And I would never have put those two together. So I was so excited, like, just let me have a crack at this. This would be really good. And I did lots of research on entities. I like what Eckhart Tolle says about the pain bodies is what entities are, that the earth carries pain for us. The earth holds pain. The earth is a consciousness that is in pain sometimes, you know. So the idea of just like pain bodies and thought forms collectively going around is easier for me to digest than some of the spirit, like the teachings out there about entities. So this particular day, I went to the stone circle and I did the work, and I saw the stone circle respond to this pain body, and it's like energy came out of it held the pain body and brought it back down into the earth for recycling, I guess. And I was not expecting to see that. And I was just, did I see that right? Am I finally losing it? But the results were, it cleared it and it transformed it. And so I developed it from then, and I've had quite a bit of experience now that there seems to be the clearings and then the pulling of new energies. So yeah, land clearings. I've done it for people that have been in abusive relationships and some of that energy is still around. And then there's this idea of dark language, which is very new to me as well. But yeah, maybe we should stop there. Whole video. I know.
Well, I think we could talk for hours.
I know, right?
I think we maybe should wrap it up here. So thank you so much, Cara, for doing this. I'll put all the ways of contacting you in the show notes and underneath the video so everyone can get in.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Okay.
Speak to you soon. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.